When you put your songbook in your backpack, and you get your name for both, and your
steps that we looked at for classwork.
language.
Now, I will point out as well, these examples are matching what's in the textbook. This is me showing the special steps for those. But I will remind you that these special forms or special cases can also be multiplied using FOIL. So maybe just be aware of that. If you don't want to use those special steps, or if you're not comfortable with them, you could try today just using FOIL to multiply binomials, even in those special cases like conjugates or binomial squares. If you wanted to try that, the same two examples would look like this. Here's the pair of conjugates. When you have the outers and inners here, on conjugates, expect those to cancel, and you get the x squared minus 5. On the binomial squared, if you want to use FOIL, you would need to write it out as two separate binomials, so it's duplicated, two of the same one. For that type, the outer and inners will combine together and make a negative 8 times the square root of 6. And then that simplifies to the same answer we looked at before. That is not shown in the example printed in your textbook, but it is there for you if you would like to try the FOIL. Let's try some of these problems on page 263. Let's do number 7 through 15. Allie, 7. Sarah, number 9. Marion, 11.
And any other homework you have to show.
Celeste, 13. Reagan, 15. Yes. So right now we're okay. All right. So to square binomial, step 1, square the first term. Were x times positive, x times the square root of 2, and the last gave a negative square root of 4. To simplify that on conjugates, the outer and inners cancel, and so you can simplify the square root of 4 as well. You get x squared minus 2. Students, I hope you have that for that question. Here's number 9. Sarah as well chose to expand this as two separate binomials, exactly the same, and then she FOILed it. Notice at this point here, we have 1 times the square root of 5 plus 1 times the square root of 5. Once you've multiplied everything out with FOIL, now you're looking to combine like terms. And remember that when adding radicals, you need them to be like radicals. These are like radicals. They have the same index and the same radicand of 5, so they can be added together. This is now showing addition. It's like a difference of squares, but that is the answer. Good job on that, Marion. For number 13, Celeste used the special 3 steps from section 6.4, squared the first term, minus 7, and that just became 42. Doesn't really look like a difference of squares, but that is the answer. Good job on that, Marion. For number 13, Celeste used the special 3 steps from section 6.4, squared the first term, doubled the product, and squared the last term. It simplified like this, and then she added the 100 and the 2 together to get 102 plus 20 times the square root of 2. On problem 15, last one, Reagan used FOIL. So you notice that the outer and inners here were not like terms, so it just stayed like this. X squared minus x times the square root of 3 plus x times the square root of 7 minus 21. Great job on that, Reagan, and the others were all correct too. Good. For 1 through 13, we are also preparing for your test over chapter 8. which students you'll want to write down that that will be in lesson 113.
One of the stories deals with the
phrase. We have to ask exercise F. This is what preposition to catch. Is it a preposition, participle? Not abstract nouns, they're concrete nouns, and typically phrases don't function as a positive for concrete nouns. It's usually after an abstract noun that you'll have a phrase that functions as a positive. But we know it's not a gerund, it's a participle, and it's an adjective. Okay, Hayden, would you go ahead and read your phrase for me?
Flying an airplane.
Okay, now, Hayden, we need to look at this one. What kind of phrase do you think it is?
Gerund.
It is a gerund. So what part of speech is it?
Noun.
Now, because it is a participial phrase, participle phrases, by definition, can only be one part of speech. What part of speech is it?
Two.
What does it describe?
Child.
It's a child. It describes child. It's not a child. Now, if you look at this, and if Nikayla had been right and it had been a gerund, then she probably would have thought it's in a positive. But remember that little clue I just gave you? Can you touch a child? Yes. They're not abstract nouns. They're concrete nouns, and typically don't function as a positive.
You didn't have homework, so that's all I need to know. All just about it. Not really what homework. It was just stuff that you did during class. So we'll get it started. She said you've been on class.
Is it?
Gerund.
Gerunds end in what three letters?
ING.
So it's not a gerund. What do you think it is?
Participial.
It is a participial phrase. Participle by definition can only be one part of
Adjective.
What does it describe?
Child.
It's a child. It describes child. It's not a child. Now, if you look at this, and if Nikayla had been right and it had been a gerund, then she probably would have thought it's in a positive. But remember that little clue I just gave you? Can you touch a child? Yes. They're not abstract nouns. They're concrete nouns, and typically phrases don't function as a positive for concrete nouns. It's usually after an abstract noun that you'll have a phrase that functions as a positive. But we know it's not a gerund, it's a participle, and it's an adjective. Okay, Hayden, phrase for me.
Flying an airplane.
Okay, now, Hayden,
Students watching, we're going to start in our VSP books today with our, let's go ahead and get those out, and let's turn to His Plan for Me by Martha Snell Nicholson, and let's go ahead and stand up, and we'll say all the way through this. Here we go, ready to begin. His Plan by Martha Snell Nicholson. When I stand at the judgment seat of Christ, and He shows me His plan for me, the plan of my life as it might have been, had He had His way. And I see how I blocked Him here, and I checked Him there, and I would not yield my will. Wait for my grief, though He loves me still. He would have me rich, and I stand there poor, stripped of all but His grace. While memory runs like a hunted thing down the path I cannot retrace, then my desolate heart will well nigh break with the tears that I cannot shed. I shall cover my face with my empty hands. I shall bow my uncrowned head. Lord of the years that are left to me, I give them to Thy hand. Take me. And our last lesson, we looked at words 1 through 6. So today we're going to look at 7 through 12. Word number 7 is impute, verb, to attribute a characteristic to attribute a wrong action to. Class? Impute, verb, to attribute a characteristic to attribute a wrong action to. Good. All right. Let's see. Kenton, read the sentence.
Let not my Lord impute iniquity unto me.
Good. So basically the sentence is that the verse there is saying, let not my Lord charge iniquity or sin to my account. Don't let it be said, something impute me, saying that I've done something wrong. That's what it's saying there. So imputing is just attributing often a bad characteristic to or wrong action to. Number 8 is integrate, verb, to bring several parts, make one whole. Class? Integrate, verb, to bring several parts together to make one whole. Good. And Ray Ann, read the sentence, please.
We should integrate all of our skills to make an outstanding class presentation.
Good. So if you did that, maybe one of you is good with computer skills. You can make a nice computer presentation. Maybe another of you is a good public speaker, so you can do the speaking. Maybe another is like arts and crafty, and so you're just integrating all your ideas together to make a nice class presentation. Number 9 is luster, noun, soft reflection of light. Class? And let's see. Let's have Leah read that sentence.
Elena could not help but stare at the luster of the diamond ring on her finger.
Yes. Girls, one day if you get engaged and you have that big old diamond ring, or maybe it's a small diamond ring, but if you have a diamond ring on your finger one day, you can't help but stare at it. Girls are often going, oh, look at that, isn't that nice? Hey everybody, did you see? Anyway, girls often do that. Guys like, whatever. Anyway, long story short, have you ever been to the Museum of Natural History in Washington, D.C.? Anyone ever been there? See if you have you seen the Hope Diamond that's there? It's this big old diamond, and it turns like a quarter turn every few seconds, and someone comes and gathers around it. And every time my wife and I have gone there, she's like, see? I'm like, I can't afford that. But anyway, you need a forklift to carry that around. Anyway, so yes, diamond, the luster, the soft reflection of light, the luster of the diamond. All right, next one, number 10, maim, a verb, to injure especially in a way that leaves a limb damaged. Class? Maim, verb, to injure especially in a way that leaves a limb damaged. And Jalen, read the sentence for us.
As part of nature, many animals in the wild maim each other.
Yes, many animals sadly will injure each other. Part of nature and what happens out there. Just actually 2 nights ago, I was sitting in my house and I heard my neighbor's dogs barking really loudly, a lot louder than they normally bark. What in the world? And it's sort of awkward, like I could tell something was wrong. I didn't know if the neighbors were home. So I did the awkward thing and tried to stare through the slats in the privacy fence to see what's going on. You're like, what's going on over there? And I saw them circling something and barking, and it was dark and I couldn't tell what it was. It sounded like a nosy neighbor. I went out and got my ladder so I could see over the fence.
Where's your bird stuff? Jeremiah, where's your bird stuff? All right. So, how I write my outline up here, how I want you to write your outline on the paper that you have right now, okay? And I indent, you indent. Yeah.
The fence, and I got my flashlight, and I shined the flashlight, and sure enough, they had cornered them. And so their dogs are like they're little tiny little things. I'm not kidding. Like the dog is like this big, and it's barking at this possum. I was like, man, this possum could kill it. So anyway, I thought, man, I hope the neighbors know I don't want the possum to hurt their dogs. So I went over and rang the doorbell, and I said, hey, your dog. That it could be done. But yes, for girls, a day at the spa may rejuvenate them. For guys, I don't know what they do. Play basketball, something like that. Does playing basketball rejuvenate you? Yes. Or just sitting there on the couch doing nothing. Sleep? Yes. A day of sleep rejuvenates some of us. Yes, there we go. Good. All right. And number 12, temperance, noun. Self-restraint in behavior or inward desire. Temperance, noun. Self-restraint in behavior or inward desire. And sentence.
Achan did not display temperance when he discollected the valuables from Jacob.
Good. Jericho, yes, Jericho. So Achan did not show self-restraint. He did not hold himself back. Sometimes there's places you need to show some temperance or self-restraint, like a buffet. How many of you have a hard time showing temperance at a buffet? You just pile your plate up high and eat and eat and eat and eat. Yes. So sometimes there's places like that. It's good to show temperance. Really, the Bible says in all things show moderation. Things in our lives that may not be bad, but we need to not go overboard with them. For example, like there might be video games that you play that may not be bad things, but if you play them nonstop for 30 hours a day, that's not possible. For to never get anything else done, then you're not showing temperance in your life. So make sure you do that. All right, let's review our roots at the top of the page. The first one is am, to love. Class? Am, to love. Reg, rec, to rule, to keep straight. Reg, rec, to rule, to keep straight. All right, let's do the discover your roots there on page 67. So find the word that uses am and the word that uses reg or rec. All right. Liz, did you find the word for am?
Amiable.
Good, that is correct. And Rex, students watching, did you find that one? And Andreas, let's go to you as well. See if you match what our students watching said.
Irregular.
Good, irregular. That is correct there. Irregular. Good. All right, you can go ahead and close those and put those away and get out your grammar books. In our last lesson, we were talking more about pronouns. By the way, what's the definition of a pronoun? It is the... Good, one more time. It is the word that takes the place of the noun. What's the name for the noun that the pronoun replaces? That is the antecedent. Good. So we talked about those. We talked about several kinds of pronouns. We're not going to review all those today, but make sure you go back and look at those definitions. What I do want to review, though, we talked about indefinite pronouns.